When you own or operate a website running WordPress, it's important that you understand how WordPress actually works. It's one thing to understand how you can use the web interface of WordPress to manage content, but it's also important to understand the inner workings of WordPress itself, both how the application works and also how it communicates with a database and other files. What you see here on the screen is WordPress. On the left-hand side is the application itself. It consists of a series of files that usually are prefixed with WP- and then something, and then three main folders: WP admin, WP content, and WP includes. On the right-hand side, you have the WordPress database. Now, when I set up my WordPress installation on this computer, I used WP_ as the prefix for my database tables. If you changed your database tables to something else, you'll see that prefix instead. So when you access WordPress on your server, you're actually running this piece of software that you see here on the right-hand side. The software has several different components. It's the main application, and within the main application, you have an admin panel. You have all your content, which includes your plugins, your themes, your upgrades, and also any uploads, so all the images that you sent up to your site are stored here. And there's a configuration file named wp-config that helps WordPress talk to the database. The database has different tables for the different types of content you have inside your WordPress site. You have comments and comment metadata. You have links. You have options. You have posts and post metadata. You have taxonomy, that would be the categories and tags. You have users and user meta, and so on. So anytime you make a change either inside WordPress admin or you create something new like a new post or page, all that information is sent into this database. Now that you see there's a clear separation here between WordPress the application and the database that contains all of your settings and information, it should become clear that WordPress itself has nothing to do with the information you enter into WordPress. That also means if something goes wrong with WordPress, if it stops working properly, or if an update crashes, you can actually just remove the application and then just replace it with a new version, and it'll come back up again. The only thing within WordPress, this set of files that you need to keep, is the wp-config file, which is the configuration file that helps you talk to the database, and the WP content folder, which contains all your uploads, themes, and plugins. Right now, let's take a closer look at the wp-config file, because this is the file that helps WordPress talk to the database. The wp-config file is the only file within WordPress the application that you have to set up to get WordPress to work. Now, if you use the 5-minute install that comes with WordPress, WordPress itself would create this file for you, but in some cases you have to configure it on your own. If something were to go wrong with your WordPress site, or you need to do a hard update, or you need to take over management of a WordPress site you didn't set up, it's always a good idea to go into the wp-config file and find out how it's set up. Here you see there isn't all that much information. What matters is the top here, where you have your MySQL settings. Here you have your database name, your database username and password, and also the database hostname. Further down, you have your keys and salts. So I haven't installed these here because this site is running locally on my computer, but normally you would have authentication keys here that make it harder for hackers to get into your site. If you don't have the authentication keys, you can go to the URL that's provided right here in the wp-config file, and that URL will automatically create randomized keys for you that you can just paste in here in place of what you already see. Scrolling down, there's a couple of extra interesting tidbits. Here you have the table prefix. When you set up WordPress, you defined a table prefix, but you can also define it here within the config file. Just remember that once you've defined the table prefix, you can't change it. If you do that, then WordPress won't be able to find the table from the database. You can also define a localized language for WordPress. By default, it's set to English, but here you can change it to another language if you want. And for developers, this is where you find the WP debug feature. By default, it's set to false, but in some cases you may want to debug either a theme or a plugin or find out why something is going wrong. And in that case, you can go in here change the WP debug feature to true, and then you'll have debugging within WordPress itself. The chances of you having to work with the WP config file are small, but if you have to work with the file, here you can see that it's not all that complicated. Just like with everything else in WordPress, everything is spelled out very clearly, all the functions are semantic and easy to understand, and whenever there's something complex, there's comments within the file itself to explain to you what is needed and how this usually works. So now that you understand how WordPress works, we'll take a look at how we can use that knowledge to configure components within WordPress.